It's Wednesday, August the 12th. Lake level, they've got it down to normal. It's actually a little below normal for summer pool. It's about 9, 16 and 3/4. And they pretty much shut all the generation down. They've been doing a little bit of generating late at night, but during the day they haven't been letting any water out, so it's pretty much no current in the lake to speak of. But the water temperature, it actually got down to the high 70s. Low 80s right before the weekend, and then the temperature outside started getting a lot warmer, and it's warmed back up. It's probably 82, 83 in the morning and mid 80s in the afternoon. But I was kind of wondering what was going to happen when they shut the water flow off. A lot of times that kind of changes what the fish are doing, and it has, but I think it's made it actually better, or at least it has for us. It's made it a lot better on my bottom bite. It's a lot more consistent. I am seeing, or I'm not seeing, the amount of bait and suspended fish that I was when they were generating a lot of water. It seems like a lot of the areas where I was catching them on a deep diving crankbait and a big swim bait, seems like the bait and fish have kind of vacated those areas, but I've been able to get bit in some of the same areas, but just going to the bottom, catching them on a jig or a big shaky head. We've had a little bit of a topwater bite. I think this past weekend, we caught some on a whopper plopper and a pop-R. And as far as how to work the bait, a lot of times you hear fishermen talk about, you need to let the fish tell you how they want it. And Saturday morning was really a pretty good case of that. I had a young man up front and his dad in the back, and the young man up front was throwing a whopper plopper, a medium-sized one, and pretty much just burning it, just like a buzz bait. And his dad was working a splash it, which is like a strike. It's a Strike King, it's just like a Pop-R or Yellow Magic. But anyways, his dad was working it around some isolated brush, visible brush in about 3 to 5 foot of water. We were up pretty shallow. But his dad caught a couple fish behind him where they wouldn't touch the whopper plopper. So I had the boy, instead of just casting and reeling that whopper plopper, just work it just like a Pop-R. Just, rip it, let it set, rip it, and let it set. And then he started catching some really good quality fish on it. So, the moral of my story is there, a whopper plopper, we just want to cast it and reel it and cover water. But a lot of times you got to, play with the retrieves on pretty much all baits. And if you can get a bite, and that's what everybody means by you have to let the fish tell you how they want it. But anyways, a lot of the fish I've been catching since they've started running water, we've been catching 10 to 12 keepers, in the morning, a 4-hour deal. Majority of them are around brush piles, main lakes, secondary points. And I've been doing it up in the White River, up in the James. Today I fished around Kimberling. It doesn't seem to matter. And especially a lot of the color in the lake, there's probably as much stain around the Kimberling area as far as water clarity as there is in the upper James. So a lot of the stuff that works up in the James will work up around Kimberling and up in the White River right now. But like I say, it's brush piles, rock piles. Early they might be, anywhere from 8 to 15 foot, and then as you get up in the morning a little bit, they start backing out, and they'll be anywhere from 15 to 25 feet deep. And as the sun gets up higher, much after 9 o'clock, I've been catching some as deep as, 25 and 30. But I've been fishing a lot of the conservation brush piles, and a lot of it's, some of it's on gravel, what we call roll-offs, where you've got a channel or deep water or creek channel or even a main channel on one side or the other. Some of it's out there on bluff ends. We've been catching some off pole timber points, which split a creek where you got deep water on both sides. It seems like a cast or two away behind you, you got to have 40, 50 foot of water. But they've been catching these fish on a variety of baits. Football jig has been working good. Green pumpkin purple. Been using, different trailers like a Zoom Speed Craw. We've been catching them on a 5-fish lures, ultimate cover jig, and like an Okeechobee craw. And here I've got a baby rage craw for a trailer, and throwing a 3/4 ounce. Been catching some on the Magnum shaky head. This is only a 1/2 ounce. but we do have some bigger ones that we should have pretty quick. But I've been mixing up different baits on it. This Zoom Magnum trick worm. Sometimes I got to downsize a little bit and just go with the Magnum finesse worm. And you know, another bait to try. This is made by, it's a swamp bug. It's made by Crocodigator, and up in Lake of the Ozarks, it's a big time bait. I mean, it catches a lot of fish. They got a couple different sizes. This is the Magnum size here, but they got a little bit smaller one as well. But right now, I seem to be throwing bigger baits, and this has been working for me real well in the brush piles. So, like I say, check them out. It's Crocodigator. I know you can get them at Sportsman Factory Outlet. I think Extreme Outdoors has them. It's called Swamp Bug. But like I say, they got two different versions of it. Here's the smaller one. But right now, I've been doing a little bit better, you know, with the bigger one. And even on a lot of my jigs, as far as the trailers that I'm using, instead of using like a speed craw, or like this particular one here has the baby rage craw on it, try going to a bigger craw, or like even a baby brush hog, a little bit bigger trailer. I find that in the summertime, the fish want a little bit bigger meals. That's why a lot of times we go to the big worm. And I like to throw anywhere no smaller than an 8 up to an 11 or 12 inch worm. This is a Zoom Old Monster 10-inch worm. And usually like a red bug or a plum, even a, you know, black and blue will work. Just Texas rigging it with a 1/2 ounce Strike King tungsten weight and working it through the brush as well. Some of the brush piles, if you have trouble getting a jig through them, nothing comes through brush better than I believe, than a Texas rig bait. In the retrieve on the jigs, you know, sometimes we're just dragging. You know, another thing that will work as well is a Carolina rig. It seems like we don't have to be in the brush or the rock piles all the time. A lot of these fish are coming around those areas because most of the time, a lot of the brush that's set on this lake is set real close to what we call roll-offs or drop-offs. So, like I say, even though if the fish aren't in the brush piles are usually set in productive areas. So we've been fishing, you know, the roll-offs and the drops in them same areas. And, you know, some days it's just, you know, dragging the bait, not doing much of anything. You know, like today, one of the guys in the back caught a fish reeling it in. So my first instinct was to pick up a swim bait. And I tried a big swim bait, didn't have any luck on it. So then I had him do what we call stroking the jig, which is once the jig gets down the bottom, you just kind of rip it up off the bottom real aggressively. Let it fall back to bottom. We caught several fish like that. I mean, there's days they want it drugged, there's days they want it, you know, shaking and popping. And what you got to do is just kind of mix it up. It goes back to that thing I was talking about earlier. You got to get a bite or two to let the fish tell you how they want it. Or if you, a lot of times if you set the hook, miss a fish, you drop the bait right back down. If he comes back and nails it, that's kind of telling you that that fish wants that bait moving. So instead of dragging it, try hopping it or stroking it. You know, other than that, like I say, I haven't seen too much on as far as the suspended fish. So the swim bait and crankbait bites kind of died for me. There should be a little bit of a shallow bite, a little square bill bite, you know, if you want to go back into creeks. Now, you know, we have been catching topwater fish in the mornings on a whopper plopper and a pawpaw, but, you know, and I have them go back into creeks, back into pockets. But a lot of times I feel like I'm giving up the better quality bites out there on the offshore structure, because those fish bite first thing in the morning as well, and there's usually more of them out there. So instead of having to cover a ton of shoreline looking for 1 or 2 fish on topwater, I think our odds are a little bit better getting out there on the structure and working that first thing, because the deeper bite is definitely really good for the first couple hours. Then it starts to taper off quite a bit. So till next week. Oh, also boat traffic. Man, it's been really nice out there. Kids must be back to school, but it's been real comfortable out there to fish without wakeboard boats, wave runners running all around you while you're out there trying to fish. So it's getting more like, you know, fall as far as the boat traffic. It's a lot more enjoyable being out there later in the afternoons. The mornings is never bad anyways, because Most of the recreation boats don't get up and move around until about 10 o'clock or so. But so till next week, good luck, good fishing.